Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Mr. John Baumann.
Muhammad Ali has become the face of Parkinson's disease, but he got his name from boxing. In today's Donnie Be Fit, ABC 7's Don Brennan talks about how boxing as exercise has become an elixir to those with Parkinson's.
I'm not supposed to be able to do this after 14 years of Parkinson's.
John Baumann is originally from Louisville, Kentucky, where Muhammad Ali, known as the Louisville Lip, had made his name in the boxing ring. Diagnosed with Parkinson's 14 years ago, Baumann wanted further testing to prove it.
And I said, whoa, slow down. How can you say I have Parkinson's? She said, you've got all the classic symptoms. Your arm doesn't swing when you walk. You have expressionless face. You don't blink.
Those classic symptoms do not lend themselves to boxing or any other type of exercise, really. But Baumann, well, he got off the mat and decided to take charge of his life and this disease.
I was the first person in Louisville, Kentucky to be a person with Parkinson's at their boxing gym. And I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and the same thing happened. And then I moved here, and I joined Adam Jekyll's gym.
He'd called me from Arizona where he was living and said he was moving to town, and wondered if I was interested in training him and working with him, and that he did have Parkinson's disease.
Boxing, he feels, has given him his own motivation because it's the one thing that seems to offset the disease and its symptoms.
When I finish boxing, I feel the best I'm going to feel all day, and it lasts for 2 to 3 hours.
Steve Oppen retired and moved to Sarasota a couple years ago, only to find out that he too had the telltale mark of someone with Parkinson's.
When I heard about that boxing was recommended, I thought it would be a great way to have my interests satisfied and also be doing good for my Parkinson's conditions.
Jaco, for his part, has had to get up to speed because more and more of those with Parkinson's are coming to him for training.
It's a little bit on-the-job training for me as well, but at the end of the day, I'm training them just like any other person.
Except with a little more caution, or maybe not.
If I say right, left, right, duck enough times and I hit you upside your head, sooner or later you'll duck.
Jaco is starting a group training session so all the people with the disease can use each other for motivation, strength, and accountability.
Having to follow Adam's commands and react quickly. He exhausts me.
If I were doing something that I didn't like to do, it would be pure torture. But as Muhammad Ali says, training starts when you don't think you can take another step. I'm here to inspire. It's fun to inspire. Let's get ready to rumble, as they say in boxing. Everyone has a story of what they found out about when they were diagnosed with Parkinson's. What I want to say to you is that it's not what life-changing event you've had, but how many. Think about how many life-changing events you've had. Whether it's the death of a child, the loss of a loved one, becoming a caregiver, becoming a care receiver, becoming a care partner, loss of a job, bankruptcy, whatever. Everybody has life-changing events. If you watch the show Biography, they've got the rich and the famous and celebrities, and you think that they have perfect lives. Well, let me tell you something, they don't. They have as many life-changing events as you have. It's how you deal with it. It's how you address it. It's how you handle it that defines you as a person. And that's what I'm here to say, that it's not a matter of whether you've had them, but how many. Finding out. We all remember the day we found out. I walked into a neurologist's office, handed them my paperwork, and they said, you have Parkinson's disease. I said, time out. You haven't looked up my nose, you haven't hit my knee with a hammer, you haven't taken blood. How do you know I have Parkinson's disease? She said, you have all the classic symptoms. Your handwriting is illegible. I said, I'm a lawyer. Of course my handwriting is illegible. She said, no, but your arm doesn't swing, you tremor, your face doesn't show any expression, you don't blink. You've got Parkinson's. I said, well, I demand a confirmatory test. I want you to confirm this. She said, that would be an autopsy. I chose against the autopsy. I went into denial, which is the first thing that happens in an emotional roller coaster. Denial. Takes a second to catch that one. I went into denial, and my form of denial was I saw white light. I don't know if you call it shock or denial, but I saw white light. Everything went to slow motion. I don't know if you remember that day. Driving back to work, I don't remember driving back to work. I don't remember a thing that happened that day. And unfortunately, I've been in 2 other situations where I've seen white light. They were both bus accidents of all things. I actually was in a bus that tipped over, and I could see the people flying in the glass and everything in white light. And the other one was going back up to law school. We hit a pack of black ice. You ever hear of black ice? You've got snow up here, cold weather. I'm sure you've heard of it. And unfortunately, the bus went into the trees and the driver was killed. So, well, remember, if you ever see me on a bus, get off the bus. You don't want to be on that bus. So you go through the shock, and everyone remembers the shock. I may still be in shock. 15 years into my Parkinson's, I may still be in shock. I think it's shock to the system. I even call it post-traumatic stress disorder. Think about it. What is PTSD? But you've had some stressor and you're post-traumatic. So I consider a lot of what life-changing events are post-traumatic stress disorder that you need to deal with and go through the grief process. Depression. Depression is a huge issue. You've got Parkinson's. I'm not going to blow any smoke. I'm not like the candidates for president in the United States. I'm going to tell the truth. It's not a good thing. As one doctor said, it sucks. I'm not going to color it in any other way. There are things you can do. I'm not embarrassed to say that I have depression. There's a chemical in my brain that's not being produced that is a pleasure center for the brain, and that causes depression. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't ride a motorcycle without a helmet on. I didn't go to a second-rate bungee jumping place. I didn't cause this. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. So don't beat yourself up. I remember the first time I felt depression. I was always an optimistic kid. But I remember driving along, and I went into the deepest, darkest hole. I didn't care if I lived or died. And it lasted about 20 minutes, and I came out of it, and I said, what was that? What was that? And I realized that was depression. And I never really felt depression before. When I was a kid, I actually made a fort out of a chain link fence, and there's only room for me and my good friend, and I left my brother out. And that wasn't very nice. And he was 8 years old, and I was 10, and he hit me over the head with a rock. And there was blood everywhere, and we went to see my mother, and she freaked out. We went to see the doctor, and I had 10 stitches. He tells the story, it was 2, but it was 10. And so we always had bedtime. My brother went to bed first, he was the youngest, then I went to bed, then my sister. Well, that night, my brother went to bed, and then I stayed up, and my sister went to bed, because they had to check for a concussion. And they brought out ice cream. And I said, this is the luckiest day of my life. Hit in the head with a rock, I had 10 stitches, but it was the luckiest day of my life. That's how much of an optimist I was. Well, I went into the black hole again another time, about 2 weeks later, and I recognized the fact that I needed some help. And that's something you need to recognize. You can't do this alone. You need help. So I went to the doctor and got antidepressants, and I've been good since. So depression is a big issue with Parkinson's. It's something that's important to deal with and not be ashamed of. And then scared. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear. How fast will this progress? When am I going to deal with that interesting death discussion that was earlier? The other thing about Parkinson's I want to observe, and what I'm going to do a lot is talk about perspective, is how much is below the surface of the iceberg. The shaking and the blank face and the non-blinking is nothing compared to what's below the surface. The loss of self-esteem, the loss of self-confidence, the loss of earning potential. I was a top lawyer, and you don't turn off the faucets that quickly. I had a lot of bills to pay, and I had to stop working. as a lawyer. So there's not a lot of talk that goes into all the other things that happen. They always say it's a conference. This is the first conference I've ever been at that they didn't say constipation. Everyone always talks about, I usually count them. My wife and I count them 12 times, 14 times and say constipation. I don't know why, it was funny. But you can think to yourself, I don't have to go through all the things that happen below the surface that are huge issues, but they're things you have to deal with. This is what I call educated discipline. What I've had to do is make the decision to do whatever I can to make my experience with Parkinson's not as bad as it could be. In other words, to influence my experience with Parkinson's. Do whatever I can, and that's educated discipline. Educated discipline. Get educated. You're here at this conference, you're getting educated, that's wonderful. Get as educated as you can. One of the things they talked about earlier was stem cell from Mexico or wherever else, where magic pills and all the things you see. You don't want to get educated in doing those things. What you want to do is get educated in the things that are tried and true, and then have the discipline to follow through with that, and I'll explain that in a second. Form your team. You should be commended for having a person who's a financial advisor. I think that in forming your team, it's not just a movement disorder specialist or a neurologist, but it's a financial advisor. It's a benefits advisor. It's a disability advisor. It's an employment advisor. It's a physical therapist. It's a personal trainer. It's a massage therapist. If I had the money, I'd have a massage every day. I don't know who else feels that way. I experienced Rolfing the other day when I was in Malaysia. Rolfing is a very deep muscle massage. Can you hear me? Rolfing is a very deep muscle massage, and it makes you feel great. It's painful when it happens, but it makes you feel great. And that's something I learned at a seminar that I was at. So you got to form your team. Believe in yourself and your team. You've got to still believe in yourself. You lose your self-confidence. Let me explain it this way. I went to a seminar. I was asked to go to a workshop in southern Indiana, all women workshop, and they didn't have the money for a facility like this. So we were in a hotel room and we had our session. Now, 35 women and me in a hotel room could be a nice fantasy, but it wasn't exactly what I expected it to be. Well, I asked the first woman, tell me about yourself. And she said, well, I've had Parkinson's for 12 years and my symptoms are. And then I asked the second one, tell me about yourself. And she said, I've had Parkinson's for 8 years and here's my symptoms. I asked the third one, and she said, I have Parkinson's. I said, time out, slow down, time out. You are not Parkinson's. You are the same person you were before you got Parkinson's. You just happen to have Parkinson's. Tell me about yourself. And the first woman said, well, I was an architect, and in the Indianapolis skyline you can see one of my buildings. Wow. The second one said, I grow award-winning organic tomatoes. Cool. And then we went on from there. And it was as if the clouds parted and the sun shone through, and it changed the whole atmosphere of the discussion. It wasn't about Parkinson's anymore, it was about the people. You are still the same person you always were. And remember that. And if you're a care partner, remember that's the same person you married, the same person you've loved for all these years. Don't look at them any differently. But you got to believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Yeah, believe in yourself. I don't quote many inspirational speakers, but I quote Regain Your Shout. And let me tell you where I quote this from, Tim Story. Remember when you were 10 or 12 years old, you used to walk in the house and say, I'm home! Nobody could be home, but you announce your presence with authority. That's cool. Somewhere along the line, we lost that. We got beat down, we got self-conscious, whatever. I'm saying regain your shout. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel lesser of a person. Regain your shout. I'm home! Who's this? Carlos Delgado. No, it's not Carlos Delgado. I figured I'd pick someone, a Blue Jay that had a lot of home runs. But you're right, it's Ted Williams. Ted Williams batted 400 in 1941. Now 400, if you don't know baseball, is unbelievable. 4 hits out of every 10 times up. No one's batted 400 since. He batted 406 that year. And he was asked by a reporter when he was 65 years old how he would do against today's pitching. And he said, I'd hit about 200. And the reporter was blown away. He said, 200? You're one of the best hitters of all time. He said, why do you think the pitchers of today are so much better? He said, for goodness sake, I'm 65 years old. How do you think I'd bat against today's pitcher? Crazy thing about it is he still thinks he can get 2 hits out of every 10 times up. That's how much confidence this guy had. People called it arrogance, but I call it confidence. Keep your self-confidence. Do what you can to keep your self-confidence. How do you do that? Get involved in activities. Do things. Maybe you can't do certain things anymore. I can't be a lawyer anymore. That hurts. I can't play softball anymore. I used to be a very avid softball player. Find your joys. There are other things you can do. Find your joys. Find the things that you like to do and do them. Substitute. Reinvent yourself. Muhammad Ali. I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew that I was. That's confidence. My daily action plan. Let's get down to breast, what's the expression? Breast, roots, breast tacks. There you go. I sometimes forget. Brass tacks. What you've got to do in order to have this transformation, in order to have this confidence, is come up with a daily action plan. Now this isn't big picture like when I decided to become a lawyer, I had to graduate from high school, undergraduate, and then law school, and then get a job. Those are big picture items. I'm talking about the small daily action plans. Take your medication. Thank goodness for levodopa-carbidopa, or I wouldn't be able to exercise. Have a healthy diet. Now, exercise beyond your comfort zone and stay engaged, mentally stimulated. Those are the things that I have to do on a daily basis in order to be as healthy as I can possibly be and make sure my experience with this life-changing event is as tolerable as possible. Healthy diet. 10 years ago, I was talking about exercise. And at symposiums like this, they wouldn't talk about exercise very much because they didn't do the studies. Now they've done the studies, and now they talk about exercise. Duh. Exercise is going to be good for you. I knew that 10 years ago. I know that today. It's important to exercise. If you've never exercised in your life, it's time to exercise. Now, I'm not talking about doing something crazy like doing boxing right away. I'm talking about slowly going into it, doing it in a controlled manner, in a healthy way with your doctor's supervision. But everybody can eat more healthy. And let me tell you how you can do this. I'll give you the secret to eating healthy. Watch a documentary a day. Look up documentaries on nutrition. Forks Over Knives. Food Matters. There's many others. Watch documentaries. You'll learn so much, and you can become an expert on diet. I happen to have, my experience with Parkinson's, which has been 15 years. Am I inspiration enough that 15 years I've had Parkinson's and I can look like this? 15 years. Well, I didn't have a smooth ride. I used to talk about exercise, but then go do my elliptical machine 10 minutes every month. I wasn't doing it. I was phony. I wasn't talking. I was talking, but I wasn't doing it. 10 years into my Parkinson's, I was very symptomatic. I was sleeping all the time. I had a lot of fatigue. I was not engaging with my family. And I went to a seminar just like this, and I heard somebody say, if you hear one thing at this seminar that you take away, I feel good about that. I heard this one personal trainer say, exercise beyond your comfort zone. I said, I need to do that. I'm going to commit to do that. So I went and got a personal trainer. He turned out to be a personal counter. All he did was count while I did the exercise. It's funny. So about 2 weeks later, my mother calls this divine intervention. I was in St. Thomas of the Virgin Islands, and I met a woman who was living in St. John, and she was an exercise and fitness enthusiast, and we hit it off great. 2 weeks later, I moved her to Louisville, Kentucky. 3 weeks later, we got married, and she taught me how to exercise and how to eat right. She only made healthy food for me. And I used to watch her do these Shaun T videos. Anyone ever see the infomercial with Shaun T? He does these insanity videos. She's jumping over imaginary logs. I'm the one that's supposed to be hallucinating, but she's jumping over imaginary logs. She's doing the Heisman maneuver, which she doesn't watch football, so I don't know how she knew how to do the Heisman maneuver. But I'm watching her do this, and it's a vigorous workout. And then one day I just said, I'm going to do this. So I started doing it with her. And I said to her, could you put together a plan for me to get healthy? And she started me on the treadmill, moved to the elliptical machine, moved to the spin bike, started doing interval training on the spin bike where you sit up and stand up and sit and stand. Started doing kettlebell, core exercises, and then eventually boxing. And then we started doing hot yoga. And we did that every other day. And it's not, if you want to transform yourself, if you want to get healthy, it's not 3 times a week. It's not 4 times a week. It's not 5 times a week. 6 times a week. And what we do is on Sunday nights, we plan out our schedule. We plan out our schedule for the week. We put down what exercise we're going to do. We put down what we're going to do for fun, because you got to have fun. You got to put aside time for fun. And we put together our schedules. So this is the advertisement for the core training, and that's my wife Bernadette next to me, and they were nice enough to put me on the picture. Let me give you some perspective. My son once asked me, what's the worst thing that ever happened to me? And I said to him, well, let me think about it. And he said, Dad, why do you always have to think about it? I said, I'm a lawyer. I think about things. I don't just answer the questions. So the next day I said to him, nothing. He thought I was going to say getting Parkinson's. He thought I was going to say divorcing his mother. He thought I was going to say not being able to be a lawyer anymore. But I told him nothing. And the reason is that my daughter is still alive. I said to him, your sister didn't die. I imagined her funeral. My daughter was born without a diaphragm. Without a diaphragm, you can't breathe. You don't have lungs. Your stomach moves up into the chest cavity and prevents lungs from developing. She had a 40% chance of living. We had to make the decision whether to terminate the pregnancy and try again. And I made the decision that if she had my fighting spirit, I was going to give her every chance she had. So she had to be 5 pounds in order to be put on the life support system. She was 5 pounds 1 ounce. On her 6th day after being born, this little child, they took a Gore-Tex pad and replaced the diaphragm with a Gore-Tex pad, or put in a Gore-Tex pad. And then we had to wait to see if the lungs developed, and they did. And she's a freshman in college now. And she's doing great. She's got cerebral palsy, which is probably an outgrowth of the transition from the birth to the ECMO machine. Doesn't hold her back. She's doing great. And I said to my son, she didn't die. That's perspective. Anyone know this movie? They don't show Overboard in Canada? Goldie Hawn, Goldie Hawn. Well, I always talk about, in my book on success, I talk about awareness. And awareness is continually question what is and see beyond what's apparent. Continually question what is and see beyond what's apparent. Roddy McDowell is a famous actor. He died a few years ago, but he's a famous actor. He took the role of the butler in this movie, which surprised me. Why would a famous actor take the role of a butler? The story goes, Goldie Hawn is this rich woman, and she throws overboard this carpenter's tools because he didn't do what she considered a good job. She then fell overboard as well later on, and she got amnesia, and he claimed her as his wife in order for her to work off the cost of the tools, though she didn't know it. She gets her memory back, and she goes back to the yacht, and she's in between worlds. She was rich for a long time, and then thought she was poor, and now she's rich again, and she didn't know where she was. She was in the galley, and she was talking to Roddy McDowell, and this is why I think he took this role, because he got to deliver the coolest line. What she said to him was, "I'm so sorry," and he was taken aback that she apologized, and she said to him, "What am I going to do now?" And he said to her, "Madam, we're all born with blinders on. You've had the unique opportunity of having yours removed for a short period of time. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. You've got Parkinson's, your partner has Parkinson's, you've had your blinders removed. How much you make, what kind of car you drive, doesn't seem to matter that much anymore. You've had your blinders removed. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. Do you do something with purpose? Do you do something to help others? Do you do something? What do you do? What do you do with that information? That's having your blinders removed. That's me pre-transformation. I'm still pretty good looking. But I had 2 chins. And I don't know why she was attracted to me or married me, but this is where the journey begins. And you can see how red my face is and how blotchy it is and how bad my skin is, and I was overweight. You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. You have to continue to reinvent yourself. Whatever happens in your life, I was gonna have to stop playing softball at some point. Maybe be in my 70s, but I was gonna have to stop playing softball at some point. So maybe it was moved up a bit. What I consider Parkinson's to be is it's almost like you're aging more quickly, that you're slowing down more quickly, and you have to fight that with exercise and good diet and that sort of thing. But you're going to have to continually reinvent yourself. You're going to live a certain amount of time. I love the discussion on death, because it's not something that people like to talk about, but it's something that you need to deal with. But you need to continue to reinvent yourself. So I was 48 years old. I'm going to live another 50 years. I wasn't even half done with my life. And I had to make a decision what I wanted to do. And I loved teaching in college. That was a great experience. I loved writing a book. That was a labor of love, let me tell you. And I love helping others. And that's what I get to do today. Think about this. On Saturdays, when I was a lawyer, most of the time I was in the office on Saturdays. The door closed, reviewing contracts. Instead of that, I get to be here with you. Which is better? No doubt in my mind. It's better to be here with you. So that's almost a positive. I could call it a positive of having Parkinson's. I would have died at my desk of a heart attack. I was eating a lot of red meat, drinking too much, living the good life, and I wouldn't have gotten to experience what I've experienced over the last 5-6 years. I call myself an inspirational speaker, and people love initials after their names. PhD, MD, JD. Well, I'm a WJS, HTP, ATHP. What do you think that is? Anyone gets this right, you get a free book. I'm an inspirational speaker who just so happens to have Parkinson's. I minimize the Parkinson's part. That's a small part of what I try to talk about. I'm talking about all life-changing events. If you take the experience that you've got, the Parkinson's experience, and you turn it around and make it a good thing as best as you can. I'm not going to say that it's the best thing. My mother used to say, everything happens for the best. That's what she said growing up. And one day, I talking to her, and she said, you know, John, everything happens for a reason. I said to her, whoa, time out. You changed from best to a reason. Why? She said, because you got Parkinson's, and I can't imagine that's for the best. Now, I don't think I can ever prove to her it's for the best. I may never prove to myself it's for the best. Maybe it is just for a reason. But I'm going to make sure I know what that reason is, and I'm going to do whatever I can to fulfill that reason. I never knew till I went to New York City that I dressed like a Smurf. Talk about dystonia. Does anyone get dystonia here? Anyone get dystonia? You're lucky. Dystonia is when, for me, it's when my foot cramps up and turns to the side and the toes go all different which ways. It's very painful. The first time I got it, I was in Venice, Italy, on a bridge. And I had to sit down on the curb. And my wife, without missing a beat, took my hat off my head, put it in my hand upside down, and said, at least make some money while you're down there. I can't make this stuff up. We had a weekly poker game, played Texas Hold'em, weekly poker game. After I got Parkinson's, I stopped taking my medication the day before. Nobody knew when I got that fourth queen. My facial expression never changed. They banned me from the game. They thought I was cheating and it wasn't fair. So that's poker. We got to go to Malaysia. Now, I have no idea what's written there. What was fun for me was I would speak and then they'd translate into Mandarin Chinese, and I would speak in the Mandarin Chinese, just like what happened over here, when the woman would speak and then it was translated into English. I thought that was funny. Once again, my theme, and this is real important to get, because I want you to get something from this. You can influence your experience with Parkinson's. You have the ability to do it. You have the inner strength. You have the means to do it. Just come up with your daily action items and stick to them. Educated discipline. Do what you need to do. The best 6 doctors are sunshine, water, rest, air, exercise, and diet. The best 6 doctors. I say uncover your purpose. Your purpose is already there. It exists. You don't have to create it. You just have to uncover it. You have to find out what it is, uncover it. It's already there. Find out what your purpose is. Michael J. Fox. He's from, I think he's from France or Italy, something like that. I don't know what country he's from. Michael J. Fox, would he have raised $400 million for Parkinson's research had he not gotten Parkinson's? No. For the best? I don't know. For a reason? Probably. It's probably a reason he got Parkinson's. Like I said, I wouldn't have taught, I wouldn't have written a book, and I wouldn't have been helping people. Live in every moment. Live in every moment. Let me tell you my experience with living in every moment. I was the last one admitted to Cornell's class of 1986, law school. I actually got a phone call, and the woman said, this is Cornell Law School calling. Now, I didn't know a law school could call. I didn't know a building could call. But she said, this is Cornell Law School calling. And I said, Brad, cut it out. And she said, I don't know who Brad is, but it's Cornell. You're on the waiting list, and we have 1 spot left. Do you want it? I said, how long do I have to decide? She said, this phone call. I said, I'll take it. I'll be there. and I got to go to Cornell Law School. What was amazing to me is how I lived in every moment. To me, the ivy covered buildings, the brilliant professors, the students that were just top 2% of everything they've ever done, just blew me away. And every day I was in law school, I was living in the moment. That's the way I need to live today. And I don't always do it, but I try to do it. And that's what I suggest to you. This is Jim Valvano. Jim Valvano was a great inspirational speaker, and he was a basketball coach in the United States of a college. Jim Valvano gave a speech at the ESPN Awards called the ESPYs. That was unbelievable. He was riddled with cancer. He ended up living 6 more weeks. He had to be helped onto this podium. He started doing a speech, and the camera person, someone held up a sign that said 20 seconds, and he said, "This guy's holding up a sign that says 20 seconds. I've got months to live, if not weeks to live. I'm going to talk as long as I want." So one of the things he said that struck me was, he said, if every day you think, you laugh, and you come to tears, whether tears of joy or tears of sorrow, you've had a heck of a life. You've had a heck of a life. Wow. That's pretty powerful. Let me talk to caregivers for a second. Care partners, care receivers, whatever you want to call them. Caregivers. You got initials too. RTBDA. Rarely thanked, but definitely appreciated. Rarely thanked, but definitely appreciated. When they saw that my daughter had this birth defect on an ultrasound, I didn't thank the ultrasound nurse for seeing this defect. I didn't thank her. Thank you very much for seeing this defect in my daughter. But she saved my daughter's life. If she didn't see the defect, she would not have lived. And I don't even know her name. When I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I didn't say thank you to the doctor. It's not natural. But you need to thank the people that help you. Rarely thanked, but definitely appreciated. What I want you to do right now is, if you're a care partner, if you're the care receiver, if you're the person with Parkinson's, thank the person that's your care partner. Thank him right now. Whether it's a touch of a hand, or a hug, or a kiss. Don't go beyond that. Stay PG. But let them know how much you appreciate it. In my book, I picked out, of the 12 success principles, the ones that apply to Parkinson's. And the one I want to point out is have faith. Have faith in yourself, have faith in others, have faith in your higher power. Have faith in your higher power. I like to give tangible takeaways. Things you can bring with you. Remove your blinders. Just keep moving forward. Regain your shout. Tap into your inner strength. Uncover your purpose. Discover your joy. Believe in yourself and your team. Live in every moment. I was in San Antonio, Texas. And I'll do this here, of course. Anyone that wants to come up and talk to me, I'll talk to you as long as you want to talk. Whatever you want to talk about. I've been to 90 symposiums now. So I've learned a lot, and I'm willing to share that knowledge with anybody. But I was in San Antonio, and the last person in the line was this gentleman, and I said, "Do you have Parkinson's?" He said, "No, my wife does." I said, "Well, where is she?" He said, "She wanted to come. She's seen your YouTubes. She's a big fan, but she's in a wheelchair, and she wasn't up to coming." I said to him, "How far do you live from here?" He said, What do you mean?" I said, "I got 3 hours for my flight. Can we get to your home and get to the airport in time?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Let's go." I get to do that. How awesome is that? We surprised her. She was blown away. He left the room, and she said, I'm thinking about taking my own life. I can't take this anymore. And I said to her, your husband tells me you were a teacher. She said, yes. I said, who's those pictures on the wall? She said, those are my grandchildren. Have you taught them everything you need to teach them? She said, no. Then you have a reason to live. I get to do this. It's awesome. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. How'll I handle being in a wheelchair? I hope with the same courage that I've handled everything else.